This week, I'm picking Craig Piggott's brain, the founder and CEO of Halter. Craig, give us a bit of a background. Who are you? What are you all about?
Thanks for having me. I'm a Kiwi, born and bred in the Waikato. Parents, at least for my whole life, parents have been farming. My old man originally was from Auckland, but mum's probably like a second or third generation farmer. Grew up farming, loved it. I think as most country kids do. Studied engineering. Probably always planned to go back to farming in some capacity, just wasn't sure how or like exactly in which way. For a while, I wanted to be a vet until I think it was my dad probably said, like, you got to study ridiculously hard and as hard as a doctor and you don't get paid as well as a doctor or something like that. Anyhow, I didn't go to vet school. I did engineering and then just through luck really ended up at Rocket Lab, and that was purely just as an engineer. It was a cool company. But the byproduct of being there was like learning about startups, learning about raising money, learning about chasing a crazy mission. Left Rocket Lab to start Halter. That was now 7 years ago, 7 and a bit years ago. That has gone incredibly quickly. Should I explain Halter?
Please. I think that everyone would know what it is by now, but if they don't.
We build like a collar for a cow, a collar and an app. Are the two parts that you see. The main point of this is the collar does two things. It monitors and trains the animal. So the monitoring side is relatively like easy to understand and it's been around for a long time. So that's predominantly around heat detection and mating, but we also do a bit of health stuff. And then on the training side, that's like the slightly more novel piece. It's less novel these days. I guess it's been around for a while now. We can virtually fence, shift, and manage these animals. And that's really important for pasture. That's really the main thing. You get better at grazing. Pasture is obviously the heart of any dairy farm, or really any pasture-based farm, dairy or beef. So that's the overview at a high level.
So do you actually remember the moment where you first had the thought around Halter? Was there a pivotal moment? Or was it something that kind of just built up over time?
For the first year, nothing worked. Like we built many prototypes and we just couldn't train cows. So it seemed like a terrible idea for the first whole year. So no, almost the opposite of a pivotal moment, right? A long extended period of time where it doesn't seem like anything's going to work. But I'd say if I was to, in hindsight, and only in hindsight, if I was to reflect, it would have been my time at Rocket Lab, because that was the time that I realized there was such a thing as a startup. Didn't even know what that was when I grew up on a farm. You could do this crazy thing where you raise money from investors, then you chase a really lofty mission, and almost the loftier the mission and the more impact it's going to have, the better people you can hire. And so you're like, oh, this kind of whole thing just works. I was obviously like incredibly naive when I left Rocket Lab. I thought it was going to take 2 years and cost a hundredth of what it ended up costing. So I think that's the pivotal part, like the inspiration really. Peter Beck, who was my boss at the time, really just the ultimate role model and supporter. And if I had never met him, I don't think I would have started Halter. Yeah. And when we started Halter, it wasn't around an idea really. It was around a problem. It was around like the fact that ag is so critical and very underserved. I'd go home and see my parents, and I was away at university for 4 years, and you go back to the farm and not a whole lot's changed. So it's not really changing at the rate it seems to need to, based on challenges, climate and consumers and whatnot.
I imagine too, like when you're hanging out with a dude that's going to do space or not space travel, put rockets in the air.
Yeah.
I guess the good thing is you're around someone that's inspirational, that's a big thinker that just believes. It's probably not far-fetched to think that we can have fenceless and data and all this stuff happening with cows.
I was like, this guy's inventing the space industry in New Zealand. In fact, the least I can do is maybe start a company that helps ag. It makes sense that there'd be a company in New Zealand that was focused on trying to bridge the gap between technology and farming. I have a great appreciation for Pete, and that's grown over time as I've tried to build Halter. Even back then when I joined Rocket Lab, a lot of my fellow engineers at university were like, no way is that going to work. That is crazy. And he had an afro and he looked crazy and everyone called him crazy. And like half of us at Rocket Lab thought it was crazy still. It's only over time that you start to think maybe this thing can work.
I was always taught to invest in the things that seem the craziest, because those are usually the things that work out the best.
That sounds good in theory. At least it's a lot of fun, and get out of bed in the morning just excited. And if you're going to throw every evening and weekend at something and commit your life to it, it might as well be fun. You're not going to do that if it's boring.
So that vision, did you just know it's pretty hard to keep going when something's not working? So you're talking about these prototypes, you keep thinking tomorrow it's going to work and it doesn't. Did you just have a vision, like where you've landed now is exactly where you thought it would be?
No, not at all. That'd be good though, wouldn't it?
If you work that one out, let me know.
So when new people start at Halter today, like one of the most common questions is, wow, what you've built is just so impressive, or like, how did you think of this? I'm like, what today? Your perspective of Halter is very different to what it was in the beginning, right? Like Halter today is the product of 50 people and people before them, and many other people like adding to that vision. Many other people being like, we could do X. Like, hey, I've worked out how we could do this. Or I was with a farmer today and they were using it in this way, and I think we should build a product for that. And or like, shit, maybe 3/4 of the features that Halter has have probably come from like our customers trying to do. You put a tool in the hands of farmers and they'll find out like the 100 different ways they could use it.
100 different ways it doesn't work.
Yeah, for sure. And some of those ways you're like, sorry, we can't do that. That seems like we don't know how to do that, but other things like, yeah, that's great. We can make that better. And so the vision of Halter today, like the company, the product, that's a result of so many people collectively. It's bigger and more ambitious than it's ever been. But that's not how, like on day one, it was a lot smaller than that. It was a lot more based around, I wonder if there's a better way. If you could fence a cow virtually, then you could graze an animal. Like you could graze your grass in a way. I wasn't even exactly sure like how at the time, but you just prioritize the biggest risks initially. If you're ever going to start a startup, that's probably my main advice. Pick your biggest risk and run straight at that. So for us, that was the training piece. Everyone knows you can build an app and do the marketing stuff and build some hardware. Like everybody else has already done that, but no one knows whether you can train a cow to listen to sounds.
And that's the difference between improvisation, right, and innovation. I think innovation solves a future problem and improvisation just fixes a here and now. And I think my perception is you've created something that will, at the time, was fixing a future problem, or maybe a current, but it will fix future problems.
Like one of the first engineers we hired would have been instrumental in the fact that our hardware is updatable. I can't remember, but someone would have said, hey, it'd be really important that we can update this thing when we've deployed it. Then we can keep improving it forever. You're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Today, I'm like super thankful for that. That's probably the single best thing about Halter is that the product changes all the time. Like Halter now is very different to it was a year ago, and it will be very different in a year's time.
Did you want to walk away? How many times were you like, screw this, is too hard?
Well, that's a question. I would have lost count how many times, if you were to ask my partner, how many times have I like called her in tears, I don't know, at midnight, like still at work. We would have lost count of that. That would have been, that would have been a dozen or so plus. I've never seriously thought about quitting. Like,
it'd be fleeting, right?
It's not really in my nature. And I think it's not really in many farmers' natures. Like that's farming, right? If it's Christmas Day and it's raining and the cows are out and you're at your grandparents 2 hours away, tough luck. Get in the car and go get them. You just wake up every morning and move the ball forward. There's hard days, weeks, months for sure.
Yeah.
Even years. Like, but you only lose if you quit. Then next thing you find you've been doing it for 7 or 8 years, which like I guess doesn't seem like that long for farmers that have been doing it for 50 years.
Do you reckon it's that engineering mindset? It's like you don't actually think something isn't possible. Everything's possible. It's just working out a way to do it. Do you think that's a big driver as well? And then the grit being the farmer, right? So the grit is no matter what, I'm going to put my gumboots on no matter how cold it is, no matter how wet it is, something's got to get done. So I'm going to go do it.
Grit's a huge part of it. If I ever have kids, I hope one of their top traits is grit or resilience or like this just, I think if you want to do anything hard or important in life, most things are hard and it requires a serious amount of grit. I don't know if that many people are born like extremely talented at X, like you just really learn it through lots and lots of effort. But definitely the engineering mindset's like you can break everything down to sizable problems and then you execute. It's not going fast enough, or you work harder, do more hours, and you try different ways and you hire smart people. And if we're not solving really hard problems, we've not been ambitious enough. And so even today we are constantly like pushing the envelope and finding out like what's possible and what's not. And we get a few things right and it becomes a really cool product and it has a massive impact and we go, sweet, that's good. And we ship it and then we move on and try new stuff.
Just hearing you talk, I imagine you're exhausted. You got your vision. Before I understood what Halter was, I was a bit of a critic of it. Then you get some asshole like me who comes out of the woodwork and criticizes something that they don't understand. How did you navigate all that? Do you just block it out?
Take it as motivation. I think if you want to do anything, or be anything, there's going to be people that take a problem with that no matter what. Look at politics. Pretty much no matter what you do, 50% of the country hates you. I think to a certain degree, get used to it. Whatever. It's just like water off a duck's back. But sometimes when it's if it involves like your family or the team, you feel a bit like you're like, oh, that's not all good. And where we can, we will educate and we'll invite people. We're like, hey, just come and see it. Come see the product. Come understand it. Like we've got nothing to hide. We're happy to show you. And we know where our values are at and why we're doing it. And I think the more we can spend time with people and educate them, the better. And some of it's also like on us. Like we'll own our part in the fact that for the first 4 years of Halter's existence, we were super closed. Like we were just an engineering company, and we were like, there's not much point talking to anyone because it doesn't work. So we've got to make the thing work first. And then a hangover from that, we started to deploy farms, and then we still weren't like really we don't have anyone doing like stakeholder management, or we're like, what is that? And we didn't really engage the industry. So we looked a little bit like renegades just turning up. That wasn't intentional. That was just because we didn't put any time into it. And so we've learned over time, hey, we need to actually invest in this and our messaging and engaging the industry and working with them. So yeah, some of that's on us. But at the end of the day, we have competitors. We've got other people out there that are never going to like us because they also sell collars. That's life.
If you got worried about everyone, you wouldn't get out of bed. Certainly wouldn't be able to keep going for 7 years to create something.
Like we're discussing here externally and like in market and maybe in the media. And on the whole, for the most part, that's all works very well for us. And people, I think, have a lot of time for us and know that we're here for the right reasons and we're trying to do good in the industry. But it can even be at a micro level. It could be like we hire someone and it doesn't work out. Like they don't want the intensity, or they want a more stable job, whatever it is. Our values are like being ambitious and pushing the envelope, and it is a bit chaotic. And we try and be very open and transparent about that. If we get it wrong, maybe we part ways with someone. Yeah, they might not. Like I might not be getting invited to the Christmas party.
When you talk about that staff thing, I think there's a difference between it's intense and them understanding what that is. Because let's face it, as I'm very proud of New Zealand, but I think sometimes it's a bit hard to find where we've super innovated. And so there's not necessarily those intense environments. There's not lots of them.
I agree with you. So when we were smaller, this was actually fine because we didn't have a brand, like an employment brand. So people that came and worked for us, like truly wanted to work for us. They were very passionate about it. And then as we've gotten bigger, we've had to evolve to like screen a bit harder because there's some people that just want the Halter on their CV. And they're not really here for the right reasons. And so it's great. You get more people applying and you can hire better people, but you also have to screen a bit harder. So yeah, and hiring's just really hard. Like shit, if world class.
There's no guarantees, right?
Yeah. You spend what, like 4 hours? Maybe we probably spend 5 hours with a potential hire. And then you make a decision about someone who you might sit next to and work with for 5 or 10 years. That dynamic's just crazy. I'm still the final interview of every single person that comes into Halter. It's just so important. We try our best. I think we do a pretty good job. The team here is phenomenal, but we definitely don't always get it right. And lots of people love the idea of working for a startup. And it's when the sacrifices come in that it's a bit harder.
I just wanted to, if people understand what's at stake, in the sense that this isn't you've got investors, you've got growth, you've got a lot of responsibility and accountability. And so it's not like I made a bad hire. It's not that you lose a couple of hours of work or a few days of work or something. There's actually, I'm not sure if people understand what's at stake sometimes.
We were maybe 10 people, and wow, this has happened at lots of points, but yeah, you hire someone and you move them and their family and their kids from the US or Canada or Europe, wherever it is. And, they pull their kids out of school and they come here and they buy a house and then you're like, holy shit, like this thing better work. If we don't hit the goals and build something that matters, then one day maybe we can't make payroll and someone's moved their family around the world. And that's like a tiny piece of the puzzle, right? You touch on investors, the easy part's raising the money, and then you've got to deliver on everything you said you would. And that's when the real work starts.
How intense is that? Because it's not your auntie leaving your cash. It's somebody who wants a return at some point.
So it depends on the investors you have. And so I'd say the first thing is like, you better pick good investors. It's not going to be all smooth sailing. It's going to be a roller coaster. And this is probably some of the best advice Peter Beck gave me when I left Rocket Lab. He was like, this is not that dissimilar to a marriage. This is someone's going to give you money, join your board, probably, at least some of them. And we're talking like 10 plus years easy. Like it could be a lot longer than that you have to work with this person, and it's going to be very stressful, like the whole way through. And so you better pick someone that you think you can work with. And so I think the cheapest thing an investor gives you is their money, and you need to make sure you're like picking investors that you think are going to add value to the business and understand your mission and where you want to take the business. If you pick the wrong ones, then yeah, that's a problem. You'll butt up against that probably forever. I feel very fortunate. We have phenomenal investors, and they buy into the mission, and they're far more likely to say like, how can we help? What do you need from us? Than they are to be like, oh, we want to see X. And yeah, they back me, and I feel very fortunate for that. And if at some point they don't think I'm the best person to be CEO, then whatever, they'll hire another CEO, and that hopefully will be the best thing for Halter. But like, the point here is that you got to pick well, and then yeah, you have to deliver, right? That's your name, that's your reputation, that's our brand. That's, if you don't deliver, you won't raise any more capital, and you won't achieve your mission. Like, go hand in hand.
It's a good comparison though, because it's chemistry, isn't it? You've got a vision of going south and they've got a vision of going north, then something's going to go horribly wrong at some point. Like, you're either going to give up your vision or they're never going to give up theirs.
Yes, this is actually like quite a common question. When I'm talking to say farmers, going to talk about our investors, that's not usually top of the list. Like that's probably the last thing they're interested in. But actually, like, a shitload of customers are interested in what's the long-term plan and whatnot. And we've been, ever since the beginning of Halter, we've been pretty clear on what we want to build this company into and what we want its like impact and its legacy to be. And so we tell everyone that starts here, we tell every investor that, like, we're not looking to try and flick this for the first time you're offered $100 million or something. Like, that's not what we're trying to build. We want this to be like a global company that powers agriculture, and in a way where land's more productive and more sustainable, and ag covers half the world's habitable land mass. Most of that's grasslands, rotational grazing and virtual fencing, and like how you graze that grass is probably the single most important principle there. It's how you have higher yields and harvest more grass off the land. So I just think we're very passionate about that. We won't stop until we achieve that. Like, we're only really just getting started, and our investors know that's the journey. And then one day, I don't know, maybe we'll I guess we will list and go public, and we'll do that at a point where we think that's the best thing for the company and will enable us to take the next step when we need that capital and whatnot. But yeah, at the moment, I feel very lucky for the investors we have and how supportive they are of the company.
Is it good to have investors that kind of, I don't know if every investor is going to challenge you, but actually also have the expertise? Are you careful around, do you need to be, as a startup, do you need to be careful, or not? It's weird calling you a startup because I don't feel like you really are now, but do you have to be careful around that they bring something to the table? Like, you want them to bring that expertise.
Probably one of the worst things you can do is put someone on your board or raise money off someone who has probably made their money in an area completely separate to startups. I'm sure that still works, but that's something we've tried to avoid. If you could probably go around and raise money off like a high net worth, like an individual that's worth a lot of money, you get them excited, and maybe they made all their money in real estate. That's like, if that's the first time they've seen a startup or been close to one, they're going to be learning a lot of things that you're also learning at the same time, and you're the blind leading the blind. And so instead, we chase investors that have built many global multi-billion-dollar companies before, and they know what their journey looks like. They know what it's like to hire CFOs and build an exec team, and what scaling problems look like, and who you can talk to. And so Halter internally, I'd say, is like our product engine. We're very good at trying to understand farming, listen to farmers, get feedback, and then build products. So that's like our expertise. And then investors are very good at, some of them at least, probably the minority, to be honest, but are very good at like knowing how to help you build a company. And I don't want to be out there working out like how to set up a audit subcommittee like on the board. I'm like, that's like thousands, millions of people have done that before. Like, I just need to find someone that knows how to do that. And then I can spend my time talking to customers or trying to work out like what new R&D we're going to focus on, or product we're going to try and build. Yeah, that's a really important part of it. You want investors that can help and can help you build the company.
Has there been any major scaling hurdles that you've hit?
Yeah, loads. I'd say every like quarter. It almost feels like just as you get your head around how to operate at a certain scale, you've outgrown that stage. So you're always like just playing catch up on. So let me give you maybe some examples here. When you are 10 people, it's very easy to keep everybody on the same page. Like we can have a stand up in the morning. It takes 20 minutes. Everyone goes around, says what they're working on, any blockers, like, etc. And so you don't even have to work that hard. So it's very easy to lead. And then you get to the point where you're, I don't know, 20, you can't do that. So it starts to be a waste of people's time. People don't understand some other people's areas. So you split up, you're in like maybe a few teams. Next thing you've got people leading those teams. So now you're trying to work out how to manage in the first place. Now you got to work out how to manage a manager. And so your system, you don't do a daily stand-up. Maybe you do a weekly all team meeting, like an all hands. So as the company grows, especially in headcount, all those systems break. And how do you maintain culture, all this type of stuff. So now we're always iterating and getting things wrong, and we've made a lot of mistakes. And if you could do it again, I think you would, like if I started Halter again today, I'd be able to do it quicker for sure. I don't regret any of the mistakes. You learn lots from them, and I think it builds you into who you are today. But yeah, like when we first launched into Canterbury, we like completely got that wrong. And then we learned a whole lot of stuff. And then when we first launched into Tasmania, we like did a pretty good job. We took our lessons and managed to execute it. And we're like, okay, that's how you launch into a region. And yeah, all like heaps of stuff like that we've got wrong. But yeah, that's scaling. That's just how it works. And that's true today.
It's about execution. Scotty Chapman from Spring Sheep, and he's done a few other startups, he talks about their whole thing is you've actually just got to be able to execute. And I think that's probably where you've nailed it, is you had an idea and you've actually executed, and you keep executing.
Yeah, ideas aren't the problem. There's no shortage of ideas. Damn, I have far too many ideas like every day. And the problem is execution is the hard part. You can make a case for if you have a good enough idea, execution becomes easy. But it's all about like how do you build the team? How do you get the context? How do you like deliver on what you say? How do you raise money? How do you drive urgency through an organization? How do you get someone who doesn't know anything about farming to have empathy for a farmer? So yeah, execution is, I hear a lot of people be like, I want to do a startup. I just don't have a good enough idea. It's no idea is that good in the beginning. Like they become good because you solve all the parts of it that you think make it a shit idea. Tim Brown, the founder of Allbirds, I listened to a talk of his at I don't know, maybe New Zealander of the Year awards or something. And he was like, Allbirds was a shit idea for way longer than it was a good one. For many years, that was a terrible idea. It just had so many things wrong with it, and they just systematically solve problems. And then all of a sudden it becomes a good idea, or it becomes something. And I think that was true for Halter for sure. And when I first did some calcs to be like, I wonder if you could make a collar that's solar powered, the math meant that I would need as much solar, solar panel would have to be like the size of my laptop. So that was like a 17-inch like mechanical engineer's CAD machine. So think like an A3 bit of paper. And I'm looking at this bit of paper and like, okay, well, that seems hard. That's too big. That won't work. You're like, okay, maybe someone smarter than me will work that out. So you put that aside, and then you do the math on like, how are you going to talk to the collar? What's the communication system going to be like? What could it be? Most farms probably don't have cell phone reception everywhere. So there's all these like problems, and that it would be easy to be like, oh, that won't work. But you solve them over time. And
it is about that, bringing things together, isn't it? I think Uber and Google, both of those things are just lots of things put together. I think it's just about having that confidence to keep moving, isn't it?
You just prioritize and execute. You just pick one thing and focus on it and execute. And in the beginning for us, that was like, can you train a cow? We didn't care the fact that the collars at the time weren't even waterproof. We put these little like tarpaulin, like we sewed little hoods for them out of like a tarpaulin. And imagine like a little raincoat for a collar, and the collar would last 2 hours and it would go flat, and you couldn't leave them on at night because they'd fill up with dew and they wouldn't work. So you put the collar on and you get like 2 hours, you're trying to work out, does the cow understand? And obviously the cow can't tell you. And so, yeah. And you just have to forget about the fact that, one day you'll have to make that thing waterproof, and you'll have to work out how to make it last on solar power and how to make it cheap enough and all that. Like, just prioritize and execute. And focus on one thing at a time. And that's also like how you typically raise capital. You show that you've de-risked the business. And for us, it was like that. Actually, I don't know if we've told this, how widely we tell this story, but for our Series A, which was like our first, I think it was an $8 million round of capital, the main thing we were trying to show is that a cow would listen to sound. And so we did these like live like demos. We would like show that. And we're like, yeah, we've got to build the hardware. We haven't got an app. Like, we haven't done a whole lot of stuff. That's fine. Like, that's what we're raising the money for. But we've got to show we've actually de-risked the business. And then you get to the next round of capital and you're trying to show something else. And for us, that next round of capital was that we had a few customers that loved the product. And yeah, so you like just really focus on a few things. Try to do everything at once. It just doesn't work.
And just keep moving forward, keep progressing, keep evolving.
Yeah, wake up every morning and move the ball forward. Yeah.
How was it for your investors then? They might have already understood this. We've gone and got, it's not just fintech, right? You create a non-banking payment system or something and there's no animal involved. It's just the worst that might happen is someone hacks it and steals the money, which is bad. But how hard was it for you to help them understand that there'll be like this animal idea thing in there? There'll be idealists that think that it's like a dog collar where you hit the button and they're shocked.
Get good at explaining it and showing where you can. Like, how do you teach a software developer about farming? Like, you take them to a farm. You send them to a customer for 2 days. They get up at 4 a.m. and milk cows. Like, you just get in their shoes, and it's like the best way. And so where we can, we try and take investors to farm. We try and show them the product. We put them on the phone with customers, and we share quotes and videos and text messages and everything we can. And though most investors are pretty curious, they want to learn, they're interested in that stuff. And to your specific question, yeah, you have to show that, hey, these cows are smart, you can train them. Like, we use a low energy pulse, it's much less energy than a fence, and that's not guiding the cows. That trains them to listen to the sound. The sound guides the cows. The sound is what like moves them left and right and tells them where to go and where not to go. The pulse doesn't have any of that like fidelity, or it's not directional or any of that. So the cows have to truly listen to the sound. And yeah, when it works well, it's hundreds of the ratios are like 300 to 1, and so they actually understand. And you can join the dots in hindsight, right? Like, in hindsight, probably what led me to have this intuition around, yeah, I think you could train a cow, is that I'd done calf club like 10 times. You train calves to walk next to you and stop at a standard and do the loop at the end. We used to take it quite seriously, I guess, like the competitive nature in the family, but you could walk, you do it enough that the calf would like do it next to you without a halter or lead on. She knew the routine. She'd probably done it like 500 times in practice. Obviously on the day you have the halter and the lead on, but having the like slack lead is an important part of calf club day. It was, at least for the school that I was at. And yeah, then in hindsight, I'm like, well, you have this like intuition that cows are smart and they can learn. You wind up a fence rail with the ratchet on, the latch on, and holy shit, you got 500 cows like stampeding you. And you're like, okay, so they know a sound, right? They're familiar with your voice in the cow shed. You say up in the bales and they roll up better. And I'm sitting there, yeah, I think you could also train a cow to respond to sound in terms of like a fence. And yeah, but that's in hindsight. That's storytelling is always better in hindsight, right? You can join the dots.
It's more fun. I can confirm that I have a 1-ton speckle park that responds to the rustle of a bag, and from wherever he is. So I know his sound, or a bucket, and I swear I could be over the other side of the property and he hears a bucket ting and he's there. You're starting to go global, or you've gone global because you're hiring for people in the US. What's the bigger, and listing to me makes me feel so excited, because how cool would it be for all of us to be able to invest in you? How cool would it be for us to have the opportunity to
exactly.
to invest?
The pressure of losing other people's money, public people's money. But yeah, that is true. But what's the big vision for us? So expanding countries or globally is an important part of it. If we have a huge amount of impact, but we're on one farm, well, obviously we have no impact. So scale is important. Scale also helps the product. The more cows are on, the more farms we're measuring grass of, the more farmers we're working with, the more feedback we get, the more data we collect, like the better the product gets for everybody. So scale is important for that as well. Also, scale means we can hire more people. We can hire more data scientists and designers and engineers. So that's an important part of it. But half the company, or more than half the company, is like directly on product. So they are always trying to either fix and improve and evolve current product or build new product. How can we power ag globally across dairy and beef farms, and probably even further than that, right? And then how do we solve as many problems as we can for an individual farmer? How do you have it so that when you're a Halter farmer, you are just compliant by default? Like, you go into like your profile and there's a green tick and it's like compliant. You're like, perfect. I don't have to do any record keeping. I don't have to do any paperwork. I just know that if I'm a halter farmer, I'm compliant. That's not how it works today, just to be clear. I say that because sometimes I say stuff like this and then someone's like, what? Where's the green tick? No, they haven't built that yet.
I logged in. There's no green tick.
Yeah, I'm still doing paperwork. So that's something I'd love to. I think that's, you solve a thing which most farmers hate doing. They're like, oh, I didn't get into farming so I can do paperwork. So that's like just a tiny example. It's not the most exciting, but I've given a few examples about if we can measure like cow intake, we can rank cows on efficiency, you can
well-being.
Yeah. I mean, like, shit, someone even internally, like one night pulled like a map of a cow's best friends. Who does this cow spend the most time with? And then you look at the other cows and you can map how cows, like the relationship that cows have. Yeah, there's so many places we can take this. We try to not have a strong bias. Like I'd say the most pure version for us is we're led by our customers. If our customers say, hey, I'm worried about heat stress. Okay, let's do some work on heat stress. Or I'm efficiency, or I'm trying to grow and harvest more grass, as an example. Yeah, a lot of the feed, that's how like a lot of the products built. But we also have our own things we work on. We try and be led by science. We try and talk to scientists around the country or around the world. We run experiments. Many of them don't work. Some of them do. Ones that do, we turn into products. Yeah, that's like the end game. Sorry, this is a long answer to your question.
No, it's good. This is good.
Is that we can be like the operating system for agriculture. You wouldn't dream of running a farm you wouldn't dream of milking cows today by hand, right? You have milking machines that do that. And yet like your grass and as probably one of your most critical variables to get right. I'm not a dairy farmer, I'm a grass farmer. And we're doing it manually at the moment. We're doing it by like eye and by feel. And I think we can do that better. And the whole product will keep evolving, and when there's no shortage of investment into it and determination. So I think with enough time, like it's going to get like really impressive. And in many ways, there's parts of the product today that we're like really stoked with. We think are good, but we're always trying to do more. We're always pushing harder. And that's the thing I like. Nothing brings me more joy than when you meet a farmer and they're like, nah, not for me. And you're like, okay, that's fine. And then a year later, you meet them, they're like, oh, this is interesting. And then a year later, they're a customer. And they're like, oh, you guys have come so far in 2 years. You're like, shit, yeah, we'll strap in. This train's not slowing down. And so, yeah, I think that's all the stuff compounds. If you just keep working hard enough for long enough, it just keeps compounding.
I think too, I'd encourage anyone to get out if they can. I don't necessarily want you getting a heap of calls so you can't actually do your job, because everyone wants to go to a halter farm. But I know for me, it sounds cheesy, but it was almost like a spiritual experience watching these very quiet and calm animals. I actually got really guilty because I'm really mean to, I've got 3 pet cattle and I chase them through gates really quickly. You can't chase them anywhere, to be fair, because they're pets, but I rush them. I'm always rushing them, right? Like I want them to move faster. And this gorgeous farmer that I went out to see, and he's just so amazing with his animals, and he's like, it's really important that you let them do it in their own time. And I think it was a 15-minute window for them to do it. And I was like, who's got 15 minutes? And then I felt really guilty when I got home, because I was like, I'm actually mean to you guys because I want you to get through a gate in 5 minutes. Whereas there was actually something very natural. And I know it's a weird thing to say, but it all felt like a very calm, natural process.
Yeah. Like every farmer knows if you just wear like the wrong color overalls in the shed, how disruptive that can be, let alone different people on bikes or dogs, or if you're in a rush or whatever. And so the beautiful thing about software is it is the same every single like day of the year, no matter what. So it is the most consistent thing you've ever met. And that's really good for training. And that's really, so yeah, it's elegant. And I didn't like necessarily expect that. That's evolved over time. And shit, it used to take us 3 months to train a herd of cows on the first farm. We had a team on farm for 3 months. We weren't even sure if we knew how to do it. Like people say, oh, the first farm must have been excited. And we say, shit, no, we were shit scared. We were trying to work out whether it even was going to work. And then now for a lot of farms, within the first day, cows are in zone and there's a graze line, a virtual graze line. And yeah, it has got really elegant. And we see this in also some ways we didn't expect, like a top farmer. And they were like, we weren't expecting to see like gains in lameness in terms of reduced lameness. And they had I think it was like a 69 or a 70% reduction in lameness. They can walk in their own time to the shed. It doesn't matter. You're not behind them. Who cares if they take a bit longer? Let them place their feet. And yeah, there's all these like benefits we didn't exactly expect, but I think they're important. And then you learn about them. You're like, oh, how do we do that more? How do we give them more time if we need? So no, I'd say a lot of halter farmers are keen to show other people. I think it's most of the market. If I was to guess, I would say majority of New Zealand farmers would say, yeah, I've heard of Halter. I don't exactly know what it does or what the impact would be, or I think it's like that's virtual fencing, or they know an element of it, but the product just moves so fast. And fair enough, you're not out there like spending hours trying to keep up with something that seems like tangential off to the sides. But yeah, I think most Halter farmers are pretty keen to show other people.
I think it's exciting though, the conversations that starts. Like I was in the East Coast at the East Coast Expo and talking to a farmer there, and it was really cool. He's, you know what, I'm weighing up the difference. Do I put new fencing in, or do I just go with Halter? It's this really cool natural choice now of what I do and how I do it.
I actually love it for the role of a farmer. I think like farmers get to spend more time being really strategic on farm, thinking about like, how do I actually work on the engine, not in it? Like, don't be a cog in the engine behind cows or putting fences up, or obviously we don't help you put cups on. That'd be the dream. But the point is you get to be more strategic. You get to spend more of your time with better data, trying to make like better decisions for the season, for your animals, for your pasture.
I think people think tech takes away your intuition, but actually, the guy I went to visit, they spend lots of time with the animals now, because you don't have to shift them around. You can actually spend that hour that you might shift tape or whatever sitting with the animals.
Yeah, this is almost philosophical, right? That people, here's an example for you. If the recent boom in AI and machine learning, maybe the job of an architect becomes way easier. Maybe like machine learning can design a house for you. Like AI can design you a beautiful house. So it doesn't take an architect now 6 months to do that. It can happen in 6 days. Does that mean that no one can be an architect anymore? If you're an architect, you're shit out of luck, you don't have a job? No, it means that it's so much cheaper to have things designed. There's 100 times the demand. Like everybody, it just becomes so super common that you can just like, hey, maybe cow sheds even become well designed, and some of these things, like as they evolve, the demand just skyrockets. And this is the same I think for farmers. Like most farmers are motivated by, it's a lifestyle, right? Almost like and if you give them spare time, like they're not just down at the pub, maybe for a little bit.
They're just going to put the extra spare time into the farm.
Yeah, exactly. Like they get to do some of the projects they've always wanted to do and never got around to. I've watched my parents, they bought their farm and it was very run down, and they've been on it for 15 years, and it's probably half the stuff they've wanted to do, they've got to do, and more they're getting to do more of it. But like it takes time. There's always that never ending list to work on. Yeah, I think the time gets spent in better places. So yeah, I'm sure like everyone's different. Some people spend it coaching their kids hockey, and epic. That's also exciting. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. We get home for dinner, just goes back into the farm in a higher value way, which is neat. I do like that. I think it's good.
Now, I've only got 2 questions there for you, because I know that you're busy and you've probably actually got another meeting and you've probably already overrun that. But if you had 3 things you wanted to tell someone that had an idea or that wanted to be a startup, you got 3 easy sort of tips for them? Well, I know nothing's easy with startups, but 3 things to think about.
3 steps to start. It's never a good time. You always come up with, I want to get some more experience at a company first, or I want to get married first, or I want to have kids. My kids are too young. Or there's never a good time. Like you just make it work. If you really want to do it and you're really excited, just get off the couch and do it. Wake up every morning and move the ball forward. There is just endless days you feel like you have just gone backwards, and it's brutal. And you're stronger. You'll become stronger for it, and that's like what shapes you as a person. Probably that. 3rd one, work hard. I don't know. Like for me, that's been like I have to rely on my work ethic all the time. And I'm very grateful that my parents, I think that's the most generous thing my parents ever did for me, is teach me how to have a work ethic and teach me that I can work a 12, 15-hour day if I need to. You surprise yourself. I think most people live their life far comfortable, right? They optimize for comfort and they never quite achieve what they want to over time. And I reckon you can I'm amazed at like how far you can push yourself when you need to. And the amount of things like I'm not very good at naturally. I used to be terrible at English. Like I was like a maths guy at school. I was never even that good at school. And I got into uni by 1 point. You needed 250 points to get into, 4 points. You needed 250 points to get into engineering, and I got 254. And the final result that got me into uni was like related to sports science, and it was a golf assessment. I got into uni on golf. So I was like 100% the dumbest kid in engineering school. And it just comes down to, here's actually another story on that. In your opening week, you do this thing called a basic skills test. And the premises are, it's just recapping the stuff you learned at school. So everyone should get 30 out of 30. And you only started getting points after 20. So 21 out of 30 was 1 point, and 25 was 5 points, and 30 was 10. And I got 14. And I'm like, oh shit. So I've got 0 out of 10. And 10% was 2 grades. So instantly, now the best I could get was like an A minus, and I haven't even, this is the first test. So I've blatantly failed. And you got to resit it if you did poorly. So I got to resit it and scored 16. So I was like, okay, I've just got to, I'll just solve this with time and effort. And I know I can work hard. That's what all farmers do. And yeah, by the end of the year, I'd been through like 12 1B8 workbooks. I was at the library at 7 a.m. pretty much every day, would work till midnight. And like, I knew maths by the end of first year. I was like, okay, I can do maths. So I think hard work, I think that's, yeah, I'm be forever grateful for my parents for that. It's like the main thing So what are the 3? It's never a good time. Wake up every morning, move the ball forward, and persistence, and then hard work. Yeah, I think that'd be the ones you can learn something from everybody.
You've highlighted it, is bring people in who don't know what you don't know. It's not like you've tried to be like, yeah, I'm the man and I'm going to be this great creator. You've gone, okay, I only get this bit, and I've got this vision, and I've got this drive, and I've got that. But bring people to the party.
Yeah, if we had, people say this at Halter a lot, if we had 100 Craigs at Halter, it would be fucked. So like everyone, we're very lucky that we don't. And I would hate to have a steady job where I did the same thing every day. That would bore the shit out of me. But for some people, that is all they want. They don't want to be stressed about stuff. They want a consistent job. They know they can do well, and they turn up and they do a phenomenal job of it every day. And these roles that everybody's good at and wants to do, and that's embrace it. If you aren't good at something, go find someone that is and get them to help you and buy them into the mission.
That's pretty cool. So last question, what is your greatest wish for New Zealand agriculture?
I hope that New Zealand farmers, or New Zealand ag, is always the place where always has a mindset of we can do it, or we can do better. There will be a way that we can do this better and solve this. It's always hungry to be better. I think that's where we are, like in terms of the standards of grazing locally and performance on farm, and just how phenomenal New Zealand farmers are, because that's the mindset we've had. Like we've always been keen to push the envelope and try new things and innovate. And I don't think there's a better place in the world we could have started Halter. I feel very lucky that like I was born here, and this is the right like place for Halter to exist. And I hope that we don't lose that. Like when someone says to me, and I don't want to target anyone, but I don't think I'm going to have kids because of climate. Like I'm scared about, I think the best thing, it's like, that's so like defeatist. Like we need smart people. Like we need working on these problems. And there's so many people out there doing incredible work on it. And I'm 100% sure like we'll work it out. We'll solve it. Like
I'm pretty sure we've probably already got the solutions. We just need to bring them together.
Yeah, 100%. If a 0.4% increase in soil carbon every year would offset the world's emissions. Shit, maybe one day Halter can solve it just ourselves. And there's a million companies like us trying to work on things. So of course it's going to be solved. So I think the point is like the optimism and like the determination to be better and push the envelope. That's what I love. I think that's what makes us epic. So I hope that stays. It's almost fashionable these days to be a bit negative, or you shouldn't work hard, or so that'd be my wish.
I think also like I was always taught that when you think you've made it, you're stuffed.
Yeah, beginner's mindset's very I think it's Vinod Khosla, he's a VC, but a few people might have said this, but they just throw away their trophies because thinking you're successful is the first step to failure, or to being complacent. No, I agree. You should always be hungry for more.
I like to think of it as a minute I think I'm cool and I've made it, I usually fall over in public or do something really stupid or say something really stupid or piss the wrong person off. So I like to think the universe looks out for me, that it never allows me to think that I'm successful. I've got there yet.
Thankfully I get humbled almost daily as we scale and we learn new things and we try things and they don't work, and I hire someone, I'm like, oh, that's so epic, and they're not. Like I'm constantly being humbled. But I agree. I think it is important to you can always learn something from everyone. You can always start again. So many people are so scared to climb down their mountain they're on to climb up another one. And yeah. No,
and once you've slid down that mountain, sometimes you get hit. There's a bit of a mudslide and you get down pretty quick, but don't be afraid. Just go find another one to get up.
Yeah.
Craig, I'm super grateful for your time because I know that you probably don't have a whole lot of it. And I love what you're doing and I'm so excited to watch it. I'm so excited to buy shares in it one day. So let's get that listing goal going. But yeah, you're awesome. And I think what you're doing is great. And I think you are fixing problems that we don't even know exist yet. And that's probably the magic in what you're doing.
No, hey, thank you. I appreciate you having me on and appreciate you being a fan and being open-minded to learn about it. And yeah, no, it's a privilege to be able to tell the story. So thank you.